Big Dog joins us here to take off his headphones because the audio is blaring in his ear.
There you go.
Dog, how we doing? Happy Father's Day.
I am fantastic, and happy Father's Day to you. You left one little nugget out. In between the time you graduated from college and the time where I found you and told you to get your butt down here to Florida where I needed you, you went off and did that thing where you actually took a trek across Europe or something like that, which is, I thought that was just a cliche. I didn't think anybody actually did that. And I'm like, where is DA? Where is this kid that was helping us out with soccer at the New Song 1040 WYSL? I'm like, where is this guy? And I'm trekking across Europe. Get your butt over here. That's time to get this career going. And, so we had that.
There was a sub-story to that, and that is I graduated in May of 2001, and it took me a long time to find a job, and it was really crushing. It was really, really, really crushing because I just felt like I had lined up everything to do something that I dreamt about doing, and I just could not get a job. Everything that I had fell through to the point where in March of 2002, I was living at home with mom and dad, and it was driving me bonkers. I just could not. The walls were closing, and I said, I got to get out of here. So with the few bucks that I had a buddy of mine that was studying abroad in Spain, and I was like, I need to get out of the house. I'm coming to you. It was almost like a vision quest. Like I got to go find something to do because I'm going crazy. And I remember being in an internet cafe in Madrid, getting the email from you. And you said in the email, unless you love sun, need not apply. Like S-U-N, sun. Like it was so sunny in Fort Myers, Florida all the time. And I was like, I am in. And sure enough, when I came back, like you set everything up and you were like, come on down here. And I ended up helping you produce the show and working part-time and then ultimately full-time. And that changed my life and changed my career. So it's all due to you.
Yeah. And we knew immediately. I mean, that was some of the best times when you and I worked together. I mean, that was some of the best times of my career. The funny thing is I think back then and the way you tell the story, and I feel like I was a grizzled veteran. I was only 3 years into my own career. Because remember, I was a college football coach. And then I realized that I couldn't get to where I needed to be financially at age 35. And I was offered a job by Western Kentucky for $36,000 a year in a car. And I already had 5 kids. And I said, this isn't going to work out. And I immediately retired. And the next thing I ended up on the Empire Sports Network doing Ivy League games and Patriot League games and things like that. So I was early on in my career. And we knew, you came and worked with me. You produced my show. We sidekicked together. I think that only lasted 6 or 8 months. We opened up a day part. You took that. And as soon as you had a reel that you could shop around, when that radio station started up over in Kansas City, you were one of their first hires. And I knew that was it. You were on your way. And it's been a pleasure to watch it. And I tell everybody, you're like my 5th son. I have 4 sons, and everybody says, how many kids you got? I said, I got 9 kids, all boys except for 5. So I got 4 sons. I always felt like you were my 5th one, and and it's been a great relationship over the years.
Man, it's been unbelievable. And when I told my parents I was going to have you on the show tonight because they came over here for Father's Day, they were like, "No way! I can't wait to watch," because they remember how crucial you were to my career, and you gave me a lifeline. And I never told you this, but that's right. I produced your show for about 8 months or so, and then they opened up Afternoon Drive. Instead of syndicated programming, it became local programming, and then they gave me the show. Management did it. Probably you did. I think you were basically management at that point in time. Yeah. And I had this opportunity come up from Kansas City, and I was heartbroken to tell you. I was like, I don't know if I can tell Big Dog because I can't feel like I let him down, and I'm leaving him because you were so instrumental into giving me that opportunity. Ultimately, I did, and you were great. You were like, I get it. I totally get it. Like, you got to go do it. But it was churning me up inside. And I remember going to them. This is a great story. And they said, well, how much do you make? This was Kansas City. And I thought, well, I make $18,000 in Fort Myers. So should I tell them that or should I tell them more? So I told them 25. And I said, oh, I hope I didn't overplay my hand, 25. And they came back and they said, great, we'll offer you 32. And I was like, oh my God, I'm rich. I am rich. The first great negotiation.
I was gone a year later. I followed you out of there. I mean, it was a great proving ground for us in Southwest Florida, which has grown, by the way, to like a top 50 market now. It's ridiculous down there. But I left about a year later and ended up in North Alabama and doing pregame for the Crimson Tide, and then from there ended up in Nashville, and the show was syndicated for a while in multiple markets, and I've been bouncing back and forth between Nashville and Huntsville now for 20 years. I mean, it's amazing that it's been 20 years. The other thing that's amazing is you must remember the Who's Your Daddy shirt. I mean, original. This is now 22 years old. Remember, I wore this shirt at a remote with Joe Mauer, who was 19 years old at the time, and now he's the Hall of Famer. He was 19 years old at the time. But it's the Who's Your Daddy shirt, and I just break it out on Father's Day now.
That's amazing. Yes, because I worked with Dog in 02 and 03, and at that point in time in Fort Myers, Florida, the Fort Myers Miracle were the Minnesota Twins rookie A-League ball, short season single A, and Joe Mauer came through there. There were so many great players that came through there because at that time the Twins were just a machine in prospect development, and Joe Mauer came through, and he was in Fort Myers for like 3 months or something, maybe 3 weeks. I don't know. And then
remember they had his 22-year-old brother Jake Mauer there to keep an eye on him because he was literally a 19-year-old kid. And the story then was, remember, that's when baseball. This is so crazy, and I really appreciate what you've been doing with the Oakland A's. That's the dirty little secret for me. That's my late night team. I'm a Yankees fan, but my second, game of the night deal, and a lot of times it's then until I can, turn on the TV and watch again. I've always liked the A's because when I was a kid growing up, they were winning 3 straight World Series in the swinging A's days in the early, 70s. So I kind of fell in love with them then and followed them, all the way through. But they were talking about retracting the Minnesota Twins, and Joe Mauer was Mr. Football in both, or was Mr. Football and Mr. Baseball out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And he said, if they retract the Twins, I'm going to Florida State. He was supposed to be quarterback at Florida State. And of course, they rescinded that decision. He went to the Minnesota Twins, had a great career, going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, amazing. Really, when you think back 20 some odd years, how different the landscape changed in just about everything, but baseball dramatically speaking. Yeah. And Thom has been, a sports talk host, an anchor of the community for a long time in the heart of SEC country. And you've always been a great kind of anchor for me in terms of information and context of what's going on in SEC country. And post Saban, I mean, did you ever kind of imagine what post Saban would look like? And if so, what does it feel like in Alabama?
Well, post Saban was weird at first. I mean, I kept trying to tell people as Saban would sign these 5-year extensions. I'm like, guys, he's not coaching when he's 75 or 78. And there was a lot of denial about that. I said, one of these days, he's done. I mean, just like that, he's done it. Paul Feinbaum and I had a private conversation and felt like if they won the national championship, there was no way he was coming back. And then after losing the losing to Michigan in the semifinal game on that goal line stand, at that particular point in time, I thought it was still a 50-50 proposition. And I just think more so than NIL, and this is the thing that people get hung up on, it's not about NIL with Nick Saban. It's not about paying the kids, however that looks. It's the transfer portal. The transfer portal is the nightmare for college football coaches. Re-recruiting your own team every single year is the problem. And I think that was the thing that bothered him the most, that kids, because he always taught a kid to, fight, you battle. Mac Jones hung around for 5 years to get a chance to start and then became a top draft pick in the NFL and all of those types of things, almost won a Heisman Trophy. That's what he believed that football was about, instilling that in young men, that there was a journey and a process. And now, I think the number that I saw, I think 68% of all quarterbacks in college football have transferred at least once. And then you got guys that are bouncing all over the place. And I think that was the thing that annoyed him to the point where he said, you know what, I'm done. But let me tell you something. Kalen DeBoer, this dude, this is the guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're all in. All right.
All in on Kalen DeBoer, I thought that Steve Sarkisian would be, a great choice. I thought the guy from Oregon was going to be a great choice. That's where I thought that they would go. And then you realize that, Kalen DeBoer's 5-0 against those two guys, and you look at his team, he had averaged 2.5 stars at Washington. He walked into the building, and regardless of Caleb Downs was a big loss and a couple of other guys that left were a loss, regardless of that, he has the most talented group of players he's ever seen. So it'll be interesting to see. The biggest thing will be the culture change. Being a guy that's coming in, a lot of people in this part of the country still think about Brian Harsin, who had never really been out of the upper South Pacific Northwest, and he was a guy that failed miserably at Auburn, did not assimilate at all to recruiting down here. But DeBoer, he's got the number 3 recruiting class for next year. He got kids to come back that had left. Everybody's like, okay, calm down. The biggest issue is the schedule. I mean, you look at the schedule, and it's brutal. But they go 10-2. They're in the playoffs, and they're going to be fine. Alabama is going to be fine. And DeBoer, he's great guy.
You and I are kindred spirits when it comes to the old school part of sports and retro and classic and traditional. And I wonder, because I haven't talked to you since this offseason of college football, because now we go to an expanded playoff, and now we go to the Big 12 renaming itself the All-State Conference or whatever it's going to be. And now we have college football. Video games are back and players are licensed. And now we're talking about a sea change of paying players and all of that. And so where do you fall on this type of new ocean that we swim in with college football?
Well, first of all, this is all the SEC's fault. I mean, you know that, right? I mean, this is 100% the SEC's fault, because it was, what, 10 or 11 years ago, the SEC gave us the first $5 million a year coach in Nick Saban. And everybody was like, are you kidding me? $5 million a year, $8 million, $12 million. Now you got $13 million with Kirby Smart. The SEC started stacking up the money that was coming from ESPN and CBS as far as the TV money that was coming in. They dominated 13 or 14 out of 17 national championships, whatever it was. So it was the SEC that took college football from being, isn't that nice? Look at that. Oh, yeah, Big Ten, that's good. Yeah. And it's a Southern thing, man, that whole college football thing. It took it from being, hey, we're giving you a $40,000 a year education. What more do you want? You got really cool swag. You get to eat at the training table. You have a beautiful place to work out. What more do you want? And the kids are like, well, you know what? Coach is making 10. We just heard that every SEC team gets $60 million in TV revenue. How about you break us off a little bit of that? So it's totally changed now. And understand, and you understand this, but this whole college sports thing, this is uniquely American. There's nothing like this anywhere else in the world.
That's right.
Canadian hockey players are not doing this. They're not. Soccer players go to college and play for good old State U. They go get paid when they're 16, 17. They sign a deal. They get paid. So we got to work towards that model. The thing that has to happen is in conjunction with whatever this pay is going to look like. And I still don't think it's going to be employee-based, because you just saw this past week, another judgment come down from Congress that, no, we're not going down that road in quote-unquote employees. But here's the deal. If there's going to be structured payment, they need a contract. They need a contract. You and I work under a contract. You know what I mean? Somebody is saying, we're trading our services, but we are also binding ourselves to our employer. We're not willy-nilly every 5 minutes when somebody waves money in front of us, jumping to another place. So somehow, some way, there has to be a commitment. Other than that, I don't think we talked so much about NIL the last couple of years. And when Toe met Leather in late August in these parts, no one ever talked about it again.
That's right.
No one cares.
Right. Yeah.
They don't care. I mean, if fans don't care, they're not saying, oh, that's ruined now. They're not. There's none of that. The transfer portal thing is an issue, but the rest of it, I think, will sort itself out, and we're going to find a model. I do believe we get a breakaway. I think before my career is over, which is only going to be about another 5 years of doing this, I think before that happens, I think what will happen is we'll get 65 to 72, somewhere in there. We're going to settle on a number, and they're going to be different than the rest. And I think that I also believe that what is now the group of five, I think at some point they may have their own championship. I think they'll have their own playoff and their own championship, because these two things are totally different. I worked for Alabama doing pregame. I worked for Middle Tennessee doing pregame. They both call themselves Division I. They're not the same people. They're not even in the same universe. So we're going to have to stop fooling around, and we're going to have to split this thing up. with those top 65 to 70 teams versus everybody else that calls themselves Division I college football.
Mm-hmm. Big Doug Thom Abraham is based in the Tennessee Valley, so he's in the heart of SEC country. And I got to ask you about Father's Day here, because you've done this 9 times. I can't believe it. For those that are wondering at home how you do 9 times, I showed up on Big Dog's couch when I was 22, 23 years old, and he had an eldest daughter, then another daughter, then another daughter, then another daughter. First 4 out of the box were daughters. And he's like, I'm going to keep going until there's a boy. And then he hit the boy at 5. Wow, you got 5 kids. Unbelievable. How do you handle that? 5 kids. And then there was a second round. There was a halftime and then a second round. And there's another 4 there. Girl, boy, boy, boy.
Yeah.
So tell us how this thing comes together, because this is one of the most insane things I think I've ever seen.
Well, 80, 82, 84, 86, 88. Those are the first 5, the first wave, the olders. We call those the olders. So boy comes in 88, and you're exactly right. And I'll never forget what it was like. We didn't do the thing then where you find out what it is and do a gender reveal, 15 months before the kid's born. We didn't do that.
Yeah.
We waited. And so the baby comes on. It's just girl after. I just assumed 2 was a girl, going to be a boy. By 4, it was just, girl. And then he comes out. And I'm like, oh, look at that. There's a stem on the apple. It's a boy baby. It was like totally wild. So then 7 years later is the oops baby. That's the one that's the oops baby. And it was like, and she was like a niece to everybody. She wasn't even like, one of the sisters. She was like a niece. So we're like, well, let's just have one more, just so they have a playmate. And so then we had another one within 2 years, and that was the second wave of sons, and then we were done. So true story, right? We're just streaming now, so I can get a little bit graphic with this story. No, true story. I've got a vasectomy scheduled. The vasectomy is scheduled after 7. I got 2 sons. I'm done. All right, and it's my wife's birthday, and she's like, we go out to dinner. A little bit of wine, a little later on. She's like, stay away from me. I'm like, no, it's okay because the temperature and this, and, we're going to be all right. But worry about, body temp. I think we're okay. It's within 2 weeks. We're okay. She gets knocked up. All right. So now we have cancel the vasectomy. Now we got another one. And same exact thing happens 2 years later. Vasectomy is scheduled.
Wow.
While it is scheduled, I get my wife pregnant. And she's like, just stay away from. I make love to my wife. My neighbors will get pregnant. You know what I mean? So she's like, just stay away from me, will you? And just leave it at that. So that's how the last 2 ended up. We had those, and then I did get the vasectomy even before John, who now is 2 years into his radio career. My youngest son works for us at the radio station. Wildly talented. Very good with video production and everything. We have a big award show tomorrow night that I'll be emceeing, and he did all of the audio video for it. He does a day part, in the mornings now, late mornings, and he's very talented. But he's the end of the line. That's it. So and the grandkids started coming. Now there's 15 grandkids, something like that. It was crazy.
Did you ever forget any of their middle names or birthdays?
Middle names, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have forgotten middle names. Now, I didn't exactly go like, who was the guy from the Jets? Was it Cromartie or
Antonio Cromartie? Yeah.
Antonio Cromartie. It hasn't been that bad. You know what I mean? It hasn't been that bad. It's hard to keep the grandkids' names straight. I'll be honest with you. And most of the grandkids, all of the grandkids really live within an hour of us. So we just had 5 and 3, we had 8 of the grandkids here today. They, about 15 or 18 showed up, and they just showed up. It was Father's Day, so about half of them, you know what I mean? Because we got, I got 2 in Florida now. Dominique has moved from San Diego to Florida, so to her husband. So they're in Florida. So I got 2 in Florida. Most of them are nearby or close enough by. So they just started showing up. And so I went in the refrigerator. I got every burger I had. I got every hot dog I had, and I got every piece of chicken. And I told them, I said, look, I'm putting everything on the grill that'll fit on the grill, and you guys can fight over it. And that's what I ended up doing. I just made chicken, dogs, and burgers, and I just told them, get a plate, come to the grill, you get whatever's there.
You also host on Bassmaster Radio. You're
Yeah.
one of the great fishermen that I know. I love fishing, but I haven't been able to get out much since AJ was born. And so I'm wondering, have you had any really good fishing days so far this season?
Decent. It's been decent fishing wise. I'm also, Bassmaster Radio, but I also do Bassmaster Live. I'm part of the rotation of broadcasters that do Bassmaster Live, which is the TV coverage. Today, for example, the Bassmaster Elite event, the Whataburger Bassmaster Elite event at Wheeler Lake in North Alabama was on FS1 this morning, and then 2 hours on Fox today. And here's the dirty little secret on that. They get bigger numbers than a lot of that Saturday and Sunday morning soccer.
Really?
Oh yeah. Wow. I mean, they're getting 700,000 watching. They used to get bigger numbers in the WNBA. If Caitlin Clark would go fishing, they'd probably push us up to 1 million too. We get her out on the lake, because certainly they want to beat the snot out of her in the WNBA. So she needs to go. Maybe she needs to go fishing. But they get 700,000. So I'm part of the TV coverage of that. So Thursday and Friday. I was out at the lake. DA, we do play-by-play on bass fishing. I mean, they sit there. We do our 2-shot stand-up, and then we're looking at a monitor, and we're looking at the fishermen out on the professional fishermen fishing for $100,000 first place, and we're seeing them. And there's there's a play-by-play guy, and there's a color guy, and I'm the color guy. I'm one of the color guys. They rotate a bunch of guys through, and they do. There's a studio in Little Rock, Arkansas. They broadcast from the studio, and then they throw it out to the lake for an hour. I'm part of the on the water, if you will, or at the lake coverage of these tournaments. I do Bassmaster Live during the Classic as well, the Bassmaster Classic, which is the Super Bowl of professional bass fishing. It's a whole thing, man. It's like when I started with the National Lacrosse League.
That's right.
We got a National Lacrosse League. This professional fishing is an entire culture. It's kind of like rodeo, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got that kind of a culture. The people who are into it. People wouldn't believe that in Philadelphia, 15,000 people used to show up for a lacrosse game, an indoor lacrosse game. So it was very regional, but the professional bass fishing is kind of along those lines.
Yeah. Well, I'm dying to get a worm or two wet here sometime this summer, so we're gonna have to hit you up for some tips on that. But
get you down here to the dirty South. You got your SEC game scheduled yet this year? Or you?
No. I took the year off last year because of the baby, but this year I'm crossing my fingers to come back down for next SEC road trip, and I'm wondering where I should hit now, because I've been to a lot of them, but now it's time to start circling back to some of the ones that I really liked.
I'll just say this, not telling you what to do, but I've always given you my opinion. For the first time, Red River Shootout, as I will continue to call it, Red River Rivalry, at the Dallas State Fair is an SEC game. And already that's the big conversation around here is, what's the biggest rivalry game in the SEC? And people want to put the Red River Shootout up there with the Iron Bowl. I'm not sure that that's the case, but it would be kind of cool, to go to an SEC Oklahoma-Texas game. And, that'd be kind of neat. You got Alabama playing at Oklahoma this year. You got Tennessee going to Oklahoma. You got Tennessee going to Oklahoma this year, which is a big deal, because that's Josh Heupel, who won a national championship right at Oklahoma. And now he returns as the coach of Tennessee. So there's a lot of kind of interesting storylines, and we're going to Dallas for SEC Media Days after 25 years in a row in Birmingham. And they started going back and forth to Atlanta, Nashville, Birmingham. This year we'll go to Dallas for SEC Media Days. We all saw that coming as soon as, Texas and Oklahoma got in the league.
Placating to the Longhorns already. Terrible.
Yeah,
Just terrible. That's terrible. Big Dog, happy Father's Day. I mean, you are one of the great dads, and you were a father to me, and I always appreciate the support and the help, and learned a lot from you, and it's so nice to have you here on the show. I know my listeners really appreciate it as well, man. So have a great rest of your Father's Day, and I'm sure we'll chat soon.
Who's your daddy, baby? Right there.
Who's your daddy? Very nice. See you, dog.
All right, man.
All right, Thom Abraham joining us here on the show.